UN Security Council calls on Houthis to stop military escalation in Ma'rib. The United States Special Envoy Tim Linderking says the international community is united to end the war in Yemen. Governor of Ma'rib Sultan Al Arada discusses the humanitarian situation in the city with ambassadors of the P5. Welcome to Yemen Today TV. This is the English news with me, Rana Swaylam. Members of the UN Security Council called on the Houthi militia to promptly stop its military advance into the Ma'rib Governorate. They also demanded an immediate ceasefire across the country and a peace negotiation without preconditions. The Council members also condemned the recruitment of children by Houthis. Further, the Council denounced the terrorist incidents off the Yemeni coast, including attacks on civilian and commercial vessels, which, according to the Council, pose a significant threat to safety of the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden. MION Human Rights Organization welcomed the United Nations Security Council's statement, which condemned children's recruitment by Houthi militia. In the same context, Houthi militia declined the UN Security Council statement, describing it as blind bias and vote to go on war to the end. This was openly said by Houthis chief negotiator Mohammed Abdel Salem, who went further to accuse the Council of prolonging the conflict in Yemen. The U.S. envoy to Yemen, Tim Linderking, confirmed that some progress has been made in the Yemeni file, assuring that there is an international consensus on the need to end the war, stressing that there is no military solution to the war in Yemen. Linderking said in an interview with Al Arabiya that Houthi escalation in Ma'rib is the biggest obstacle to achieving peace now, stressing that every day that passes, the Yemeni people pay a heavy price. Linderking considered that Security Council's condemnation of Houthis' actions reflects the international community's commitment, including U.S., to ending the war in Yemen. On a different note, the U.S. envoy Tim Linderking discussed recent developments in Yemen with the Swiss ambassador to the United States. The U.S. envoy said that the international community must take urgent steps to pressure the parties to start the negotiation process. Linderking stressed that Yemeni people are suffering and the conflict must end. The Permanent Five ambassadors held a Zoom meeting with Sultan Al Arada, governor of Ma'rib. The meeting focused on the dire humanitarian conditions in Ma'rib. They stressed on the urgent need to provide unconditional protection for civilians. The ambassadors of the 5 countries stressed that a comprehensive political solution in Yemen is the only way to end the suffering of the Yemeni people. Vulnerable children have been hit hard by the consequences of this mad ongoing war. UN reports revealed an alarming number of them killed or maimed during the conflict. The following report has more details on the story.
About 1.2 million children live in Yemen today in 31 conflict zones, including Hodeidah, Taiz, Hajjah, and Saada, in places experiencing extreme war and violence. Since the Stockholm Agreement of December 13, 2018, not enough has changed for children in Yemen. Since then, 8 children are killed or injured every day. Most of these children are killed while playing with their friends outside their homes or on their way to and from school. The impact of the conflict runs deep in Yemen. It has not spared even a single child. The horrific violence of the past 7 years, rising levels of poverty, as well as decades of conflict, neglect, and deprivation, are placing a heavy burden on Yemeni, ripping apart its social fabric, which is fundamental to any society, especially children. UNICEF and its humanitarian partners have stepped up efforts to meet the enormous needs of children and families in Yemen, which is the largest humanitarian crisis in the world. Last year, UNICEF treated more than 345,000 children with severe acute malnutrition, while nearly 800,000 children received psychological support to help them cope with the trauma they have experienced. Moreover, the kidnapping of children in Yemen has recently turned from a social problem and individual practices to organized and systematic crimes, closely related to the political and military transformations the country is witnessing. Some families talked about the tragedy and suffering after their children were kidnapped and some of them killed by the Houthi militia, while others complain of political pressures that led to the kidnappers being released even after their discovery. Despite this, the warring parties have not paid attention to the phenomena of child abduction and the mutual accusations so far. The heavy losses inflicted on children by the war in Yemen must end. Peace seems the only solution which can only protect generations of Yemeni children, but also can revive the entire country.
Meanwhile, International Organization for Migration stated that military operations in the western coast areas in Taiz and Hodeidah continue to destabilize civilians' life and force families to flee. The head of the organization mission in Yemen stated that more than 17,000 displaced families are currently residing in more than 140 displacement sites in the region, while the ongoing fighting is causing new waves of displacement. More recently, clashes that erupted into Haita have displaced more than 200 families. In Hodeidah, joint forces defended Houthi militia infiltration attempt east and south of the city. Military source confirmed that joint forces directed focused strikes on the militias and inflicted heavy losses among the rebels. Two southern Ma'rib government forces managed to regain positions in Al Naga in Juba area. Sources said that government forces took up fierce clashes with rebels and inflicted heavy losses among the militia. Innovation of Yemeni youth has transcended all space and time, even in the times of the war. The following report looks at one success story of Osama Ahmed.
A young man from Aden makes bedrooms, desks and cupboards out of ballots remnants. Ahmed's project targets youth and families who are unable to pay large amounts for furniture.
I am
Osama Ahmed Salim. I live in Mualla. As you can see, I started with a simple project, which is converting pallets to furniture. Simply, my project is to make bedroom furniture that is made of wood pallets. I target youth and families who are unable to pay large amounts for bedrooms. We provide bedrooms and cupboards in different shapes and models using pallets and sell them at reasonable prices and within the reach of most.
Ahmed daily looks for used pallets to buy from factories and companies that use them to transport goods. And then he transferred them to furniture. Without prior knowledge, Ahmed changed pallets into home furniture. With the tools of primitive carpentry craftsmanship in times of war and displacement, from these remnants of pieces, he creates a bedroom that is comparable to wooden furniture in durability and quality. He also makes wardrobes in various shapes.
I go daily to shops and buy pallets from them. Then I start rehabilitating the wooden pallets to be used in producing furniture.
Ahmed thought of this idea to overcome the high prices that the country has reached and the increase in exchange rate. He now, with his creative craftsmanship, helps poor Yemeni citizens to own a bedroom.
Currently, the demand for bedrooms has increased due to the deteriorating economic situation and the lack of salaries. My ambition is to expand and open large shops and workshops in order to reach all Yemen. The large number of requests and demands, publication of my work on social media has become incentive for me to continue work.
Although he was not previously acquainted with the craft of carpentry, thinking out of the box prompted him to start making wardrobe from leftover wood as well as bedrooms.
My advice to Yemeni youth, any idea you come up with, give yourself hope, motivation, and continue. My message to the competent authorities is that there are many Yemeni youth who have talent. To care about these youth and take care of them.
Ahmed became a masterful in creativity in one way and another, to work as a craftsman in attracting customers to buy bedrooms and furniture that the customers need and the simplest possibilities.
I got to know Osama through his work published on Facebook, which attracted me. His products, frankly, are excellent and at reasonable prices, unlike what is available in the market. I came here to collect furniture for my house from Osama. I advise young people to go to Osama and take their furniture from him. He is very helpful and cooperative, and his prices are reasonable.
Ahmed now is a model and an example of creative Yemeni youth that managed to survive despite the ugly war.
Coming next. Diarrhea cases increase among children in Abyan due to some expired food products.
راتب الواحد 120 ألف والكيس الدقيق ب18,000 والكيس السكر اليوم ب20,000. كم يعني بيعطي هذا الراتب كامل بكيس سكر وكيس دقيق؟
المواطن اليمني يعيش في أزمة إنسانية وغذائية مؤلمة من غلاء الأسعار وفحشة الأسعار وغلاء الصرف والعملة الأجنبية في البلد.
حالتي الحين حالة لما أخرج المندوب إحنا شلقينا ما نقدرش ناكل الأكل داخل ما إحنا بحاجة صعبة.
Welcome back. A Human Rights Center revealed violations committed by Houthi militia against civilians in Taiz during September. In its monthly report, the center said that the team documented killing of 1 civilian and the injury of 11, including 2 women and 6 children. 4 civilians, including 3 children, were shot by militia snipers and 2 injured by the explosion of a Houthi landmine. Due to lack of government's monitoring on food quality, many children in Abyan have been affected heavily by abdominal disorder because of eating expired food items. More details of the story is within this report.
Panic and fear spread among the people of Zanzibar city in Abyan Governorate due to the increase in cases of watery diarrhea and vomiting for the 2nd day in a row in Zanzibar Rural Hospital in the heart of the capital. The emergency department witnessed receiving cases of watery diarrhea and vomiting in a frightening manner, as the number of cases received by the emergency department within 48 hours was more than 150 cases, not to mention the outpatient clinics and private medical centers after they consumed the yogurt product spread in the markets.
During the last 48 hours, we have been alerted to more than 150 cases of children who have been affected by diarrhea due to ingesting expired yogurt.
In the absence of the government control over food products and the low level of community awareness, this has caused an increase in cases of watery diarrhea and vomiting, which continued and would cause many children to lose their lives. The people in the city issued a distress call to the official authorities and the controlling bodies to play their role and go to the shops to monitor the expired products in order to perceive the health and safety of citizens.
Yesterday, we received many cases, between 120 cases of children and adults, because of eating expired yogurt. There are children in very critical condition. They experience extreme diarrhea and constant vomiting. They are in a very critical condition. We feel very sorry for these children.
Who do the citizens complain to? Where are the responsible authorities? People keep dying day after day due to the lack of irresponsibilities on the part of the government officials.
World Health Organization warned that nearly 20 million of the total population in Yemen are exposed to malaria as the most common transmitted disease in the country. In its latest report, the organization said that about 65% of the population of Yemen, as about 20.4 million Yemenis, live in areas at risk of malaria transmission. To Aden, the government banned use of foreign currencies in internal transactions and limited them to the local currency only. The government decision is to stop the deterioration of the national currency against its foreign counterparts. This aims to use national currency in the buying and selling of goods, services, contracts and deals, and to prohibit the use of foreign currencies locally and limiting their use to transactions and obligations arising from international agreements. Still in Aden, the Central Bank of Yemen warned merchants and citizens from opening accounts in money exchange companies. This comes at a time when the central bank suspended the licenses of 4 companies and exchange facilities in violation of the law regulating exchange business and the bank's procedures. Yemenis have not been burdened by war only, but also by several diseases which have stricken their lives. On top of these diseases is corona pandemic. The following report has more on this story.
Yemen has been left in shambles and almost destroyed by the devastating civil war and is now having to deal with the spread of coronavirus. The Yemeni people have been left in darkness and face many problems such as hunger, the ongoing war, infections, lack of equipment, and spread of diseases. Altogether is a humanitarian crisis. The situation of coronavirus in Yemen continues to deteriorate. Only around 50% of Yemeni hospitals and medical facilities are in full working condition, and even these are in dire need of essential equipment and proper funding. Healthcare staff and facilities lack necessary essential equipment and money. Yemen is not only battling COVID-19 amid a catastrophic war, but also has to deal with other diseases such as cholera, diphtheria, and measles. It's not just the struggling healthcare system that's to blame for the unaccountable number of deaths. In interviews with the Associated Press, more than a dozen doctors, aid workers, Sana'a residents and relatives of those who have died from the virus said that the health authorities are approaching the pandemic with such outright denial. Since the beginning of the pandemic, the authorities have not treated it with seriousness and action. Doctors are forced to falsify the cause of death on official papers. Vaccines are seen with fear, and there are no limits or guidelines on public gatherings. The war has killed more than 233,000 people, displaced millions, and created the world's worst humanitarian disaster. Aerial bombings and intense ground fightings have destroyed the country's infrastructure, leaving half of the country's health facilities dysfunctional. About 18% of Yemen's 333 districts have no doctors at all. Water and sanitation systems have collapsed. Many families can barely afford one meal a day.
The National Committee Against Coronavirus announced 21 new cases of the COVID-19 in 6 governorates. Committee officials said on Twitter that 7 cases were recorded in Aden, 7 in Ma'rib, 7 in Hadramaut, 3 in Taiz, 3 in El Bayda, and 2 in Al Mahra. Also, 10 deaths were recorded plus 15 recovered cases. With the current updates, the total confirmed cases are 9,635, including 1,831 deaths and 6,143 cases of recovery. Here's a reminder of the main headlines. UN Security Council calls on Houthis to stop military escalation in Ma'rib. The United States Special Envoy Tim Linderking says the international community is united to end the war in Yemen. Governor of Ma'rib Sultan Al Arada discusses the humanitarian situation in the city with ambassadors of the P5. This is the end of the news. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.